Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Renfrew County Housing Corporation Committee meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Wendy, has roll call been taken?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the roll has been taken.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then we will move to the adoption of the previous meeting held on September 9th, 2020. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes? Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Regier. Any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We have no delegations at the time of the meeting, so we'll move to the director's report, which begins on page 2.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of committee. I want to bring you to item number 1, which is the 2020 contract, QP Local 4425. And it's a recommendation that the Renfrew County Housing Corporation Board of Directors recommends to the Social Services Committee the County Council approve a 1-year from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 collective agreement between QP Local 4425 and Renfrew County Housing Corporation, which was ratified by the QP membership on September 29th, 2020. A little bit of background, the contract negotiations with QP 4425 began in July. They had a 3-year agreement which expired in December 31st, 2019. And representatives of QP 4425 and staff was completed on September 22nd, 2020. The new deal was ratified by the local on September 29th. It was a very unique experience with doing collective bargaining on Zoom with a very different dynamic. I will say that it was a very good experience. We felt that it went very well. I want to congratulate all members who participated. It was a very productive negotiations. The change or the collective agreement consists of a 1.5% pay increase for the year 2020, adjustments to the boot and uniform allowance. There's been some changes in language to the parental and pregnancy leave and some wording changes in some other articles. And that is the recommendation in front of you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. So can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the director's report? Moved by Councillor Grills, seconded by Councillor Love. Any comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Reinwald.
Thank you, Chair Rose. Through you to Laura. Laura, I was just wondering, is there any particular reason why it ended up being a 1-year collective agreement as opposed to multi-year, or is that not for discussion?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Reinwald. A 2-year deal was discussed, but at this time, the membership did not want to move into that. And we will be probably back on with bargaining once this gets signed and sent off. So at this point in time, we only have a 1-year deal in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And I guess I just wanted to say on behalf of the Social Services Committee, thank you to you and your staff for arriving at such a very, very quick and I mean, it's almost unheard of that you can get a contract agreement in half a day, which I was corrected by somebody from your team saying it was actually 2 hours. So once again, I think that speaks volumes to the cooperation, not just from your staff, but also from our QP local as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will ask for the vote then to accept the director's report. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Item number 7 is the general manager's monthly report. So I will ask Carol if she can present that.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Renfrew County Housing Corporation report, highlighting some of the activities for the previous month. I too would like to make a comment about our union negotiations. It was our first Zoom negotiations, and they went quite quickly, and thanks to our director, Laura Lapine, and our director of human resources who led the negotiations, because if it wasn't for them, they may not have gone as smoothly. And a big congratulations to our CUPE group, because as it was pointed out by Laura the other day, they were very professional at the table. They came prepared and everything went very well. So congratulations to all. So moving along with the Renfrew County Housing Corporation Department report, we're going to begin with the applicant tenant issues and highlighting the Rent Cafe, which you know is the application that we use to manage our wait list. So our wait list numbers are there before you. So we have some new eligible applicants, and we have a total eligible applications of 579. So just to let you know, the online application process is very welcomed, not just by the applicants themselves, but also the agencies that we deal with. They're finding the online application very user-friendly, and it's quick for our staff as well. So the staff that do the applications, we have 2 primary staff working on applications. They also like the online process. It's quicker for them, and the result is better for the applicant then. So they know whether they've provided all their documents in a timely manner, if we need anything further from them. It's very quick that way. So it's turning out to be an asset for all of us. So the following chart is the number of applications as at August 31st. And then when you flip over to the next page or your next screen, you have the total number of applicants as at August 31st. The next chart in that section are our move-ins and move-outs and transfers. So our move-outs for August 31st, we only had 1. And our move-ins for September, so we had 4 in Arm Prior, 2 in Renfrew, and 3 in Pembroke area, and 1 was an internal transfer. But just to note, our move-ins and move-outs are down considerably over last year, which you know in 2019 were the lowest ones we've had since we were Renfrew County Housing Corporation. So there's minimal moving going on within Renfrew County Housing Corporation, and the nonprofits, just to mention that too. Item number B, tenant issues. So in this chart, we have some N5s that were issued, and that was for cleanliness. One was for cleanliness and the other was for social issues. So we're still working with our tenants on various items that are coming up. So moving to the next page, we have our financial component. And if you take a look at the operating budget, which is attached for your review, the first item you're going to notice is salaries, and that we have a considerably large variance there of $200,000. So I just want to bring to your attention that that is a result of a number of items. One being that we didn't have any increases for our CUPE union members, so that will be pushed through before the end of the year. So those expenses will come off that line. 2, we had some staffing vacancies and some contract employees, so there's less cost for us under salaries. And of course, we have some year-end entries that would have to go in before the end of the year. And one of those being our, what we call or refer to our hybrid position. So the position that we share with development and property. And if you look at the rest of our expenses, some of them seem a little bit lower. We have less hydro costs at this point in time of the year. Of course, our painting is down because our move-outs are down. So I think all in all, our budget is going to have a cost savings this year for us in 2020. Revenue, we're doing very well in our revenue at this point, and you'll hear later on that next year our revenue is not going to be going up, so stay tuned for that one. But other than that, I think that's a fairly high level overview of the operating budget. Returning back to the report, we have a capital budget, and attached for your review is the Capital Works variance report. So these are our non-TCAs and our TCAs. So some of it's capital and then some of it is out of our operating budget on the non-TCA line, as well as our unplanned jobs for Renfrew County Housing Corporation. So you'll see at this point, we have what, $2.5 million budget, and we have under a $200,000 surplus at this point, given that we plan to expense most of our money, even though it may not appear that way at this point in time, but we do plan to get some kitchens done, some flooring done, and some bathrooms done before the end of the year. And I can tell you that our capital works gal has been working very hard to push through all of our jobs. We may have a few hiccups, especially in the lighting area, sourcing the lighting components, because they may be coming from offshore, but we are still pushing ahead to see if we can get those contracts filled. So things are looking good and staff are working very hard in the capital budget area. Next, we have our current tenant arrears, and that's on the attachment for you, or page 10, whichever way you're following along. So our arrears, we have 116 tenants out of our 1,020 tenants or households that we have with Renfrew County Housing Corporation that have some sort of a balance. So I want you to know that we're working very closely with our tenants, and we're working very closely with our Ontario Works partners through the Homelessness Prevention Program to get these arrears paid off, because most of these arrears are coming from COVID or during the period of COVID. So we are working with these tenants individually so that we can ensure that they have successful tenancies after this is all said and done. Moving on to item number 3, the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit. And I've put this in here for you because you've seen this before, but just as a reminder that this is another tool in the toolbox that we have for our community. And this is the community at large, because it's not just for Renfrew County, but all across Ontario. The Canada Ontario Housing Benefit as a result of the National Housing Strategy, or came about because of the National Housing Strategy, and is another option for people to help bridge the gap between the market rent that they find in the private sector and the affordability. So the calculation that is done through the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit is based on the household size, the household income, and the average market rent that's determined by CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. So to help get the word out there, what we've done is we've done some media releases through Michael Barber. He's been fantastic, some Facebook messaging and Twitter. We also mailed out over 500 letters of interest to our applicants on our wait list to advise them of this extra program that's available to them. We've had a lot of calls into the office of interest, and we have a calculator tool that we can run numbers through for people to give them an idea of what they might be eligible for. Now, the Ministry of Finance has the final say on all of these applications, and they do the final calculation because they know the ins and outs of the program, but we're drumming up a bit of interest. So along with, of course, our rent geared income community housing that we have for people, we also have nonprofit housing, which is a mix of market, low end of market, and RGI. We have rent supplement units, which again is rent geared to income with our private, these are partners with our private landlords in the community. We have affordable housing programs for folks, those you know to be the 2 projects in Arm Prior, Petawawa and Eganville. And we have a short-term rental allowance program, which is funded through our CHIPPY program. Now it's a 3-year program. And COB, just as a reminder, is a 9-year program. The commitment from the federal and provincial governments is 9 years. So, and it's an automatic renewal through the Ministry of Finance. So these additional programs are meant to help reduce our wait list, as you know, and it gives people additional choices other than strictly rent geared to income housing with Renfrew County Housing Corporation. So COB, as you know, is a use it or lose it program. We have about $204,000 that's been allocated to us. And I just want to let you know, if the community take up is less than anticipated, there is a possibility that the ministry will be reallocating our funding to another service manager area that can use it. So COB is yet another tool that members in our community can use to assist to bridge that gap of affordability. Now, the last item on my report, the final item that I have for you today, is a resolution. Chair Brose, would you like me to read the resolution? The recommendation, sorry.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, the recommendation reads that Renfrew County Housing Corporation Board of Directors approves a moratorium of resolution RCHC-C-18-09-37 for a one-year period resulting in a freeze of the $10 per month rental increase over and above the maximum rent increase for the outlying area, which means excluding Pembroke, Renfrew, and Arnprior, should Bill 204, Helping Tenants with Small Business Act, be passed. Now, as you know, that act has been passed as of October 1st. Bill 204 received royal assent, meaning that no rent increases can come into effect for either market rent tenants in our communities or rent geared to income tenants in 2021. So previously, if you take a look at the background, we had in 2018 allowed for a $10 increase over and above the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing annual rental increase to our one-bedroom units because they were so low on the market rent scale, and meaning that we had a lot of market rent tenants sitting in those units which should have been paying more rent. So we had allowed for this $10 increase to occur. So the staff recommendation is that we hold off the increase for this year because of the new bill that's been put forward by Minister Clark. Chair Brose, that concludes my report for today.
Thank you very much, Carol. And I guess we'll do the resolution first, seeing that Carol has given us the background on that. So can I get a mover and a seconder for the resolution regarding the annual maximum percentage increase? Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. Any comments or questions in regards to that? Seeing none, then I will ask for the vote to accept it. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Going back then to the beginning of Carol's report, we have information item 1, which is the applicant tenant issues and the Rent Cafe community housing. Any comments or questions? Item 1B is the tenant issues. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Item 2A is the operating budget. 2B is the capital budget. 2C is the current arrears. Yes, Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I have a couple of questions through you to Carol, please. So you said that the arrears, which are, almost $88,000, looks like we cut a little over 400 from last year, or last month, I should say. You said it was due to COVID. Is it due to people not having employment during COVID, or is it just due to people choosing not to pay the rent?
Carol, you have to unmute.
Sorry about that. Through you, Chair Brose, to Warden Robinson. The accumulation of arrears is probably a multitude of items. We found in certain areas there is unemployment issues. People have lost their jobs. Unfortunately, there was some news releases that directed people not to pay their rent, and so people did choose not to pay their rent and are finding difficulty getting caught up. And then there are some items that are maintenance related as well. So it is a number of items that have happened that have caused the rental arrears to build so high.
Yes, supplementary, Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm just wondering, when we have arrears of $88,000, what is the impact on us?
There is an accounting process that we go through every year that you will notice under the adjustments or forgivenesses line of the budget. And after a certain period of time of trying to collect on the rental arrears, after a tenant has moved out, if that so happens, then those rents that are accumulated or unpaid will be a vacancy law, would go to, I'm sorry, I'm missing the term. There is a loss that we would account for on the financial documents.
I think the term you're looking for is bad debt.
Thank you, sir. Yes, bad debts.
Any other questions? And maybe just to follow up on that, Carol. So I know through some of the COVID money, we will be able to, I guess, write off some of those bad debts. Is there a specific qualification process or application process that tenants have to go through in order to have that happen?
Yes, thank you, Chair Brose. There is a process, and we are working with our Ontario Works partners to have that process met with each of our tenants that have arrears. So individually, we're working with each tenant with a balance to get their rent arrears paid off through the funds that have been made available to us through the Social Services Relief Fund for COVID-related arrears. It is detailed, and we need to have permission by the tenant. So cooperation and collaboration is a requirement there.
Thank you, Carol. Any other questions on item 2? So moving to information item 3, which is the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit. And I know, Carol, you and I had quite a discussion about this. And I think just for the rest of the committee, so this is a housing benefit that is available to people on the wait list. But is this the one, correct me if I'm wrong, where they have to agree to remove their name from the wait list if they want to apply for this Canada Housing Benefit?
That's correct, Chair Brose. There is an agreement with the province and the federal government that if folks are eligible for the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, which is a portable benefit throughout Ontario, that their name is taken off the wait list. They do have to agree to that. The whole idea of this tool is to reduce the wait list for local housing corporations or service manager wait lists.
Yes, Councillor Robinson, or sorry, Warden Robinson.
It's all right, Chair. I really like the idea of this benefit, although I know we have a really limited housing stock in the county of Renfrew. So I'm wondering if that is prohibitive as far as other people taking advantage of this program. You know, it's great, and you get your name off the wait list, but there isn't any place to go anyway.
Carol, did you want to follow up with any comment on that? I think from what you had told me, though, if you have your name pulled from the wait list or agree to remove your name from the wait list, you could relocate to another area outside of Renfrew County and carry that benefit with you, correct?
That is correct, Chair Brose. This portable benefit can go with you anywhere in Ontario, and it is, you can apply to have it in situ, meaning that if you're renting currently, you can apply for this benefit and it can subsidize you where you are. If you move in 2 months' time, it can subsidize where you move to, whether it's still in the county of Renfrew or it's a different location outside of the county of Renfrew. The subsidy will follow you. It's attached to the person, the household. Warden Robinson had a very good point in that our housing stock is extremely limited, and that is a detriment at this point for residents of the county of Renfrew, for sure. But on the positive side, previous programs that we have had in the housing world had to be or weren't allowed to be used in an in situ. It had to be a new residence. So with this benefit, it's in situ. They can apply it to their current residence if they're renting.
Thank you, Carol. And is there any timeline on how long they can access this benefit?
Excellent question, Chair Bros. This benefit is for 9 years. So it goes to 2029. And although it may be less than what you would receive as a rent geared to income tenant, it's the duration. Our other programs, for example, the Chippy Rental Allowance program is a short-term program and only benefits a household for 3 years. So 9 years guaranteed some sort of a subsidy is definitely a benefit for folks.
Yes, Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a thought, does the people who access this program, do they already have to be on the wait list? Or could they just be somebody that's in the community now but not listed?
Through you, Chair Bros, to Warden Robinson, folks need to be eligible to be on our wait list. That's the only criteria that's listed through the provincial government. They need to be eligible to be on here on the Renfrew County Housing Corporation waitlist or the local service manager waitlist. So in other words, they have to meet a couple criteria. They can't, for us, they can't have arrears. They need to complete their income tax because the Ministry of Finance has the final say on this. So they are looking for a completed income tax from folks. So there are a few hurdles, but again, what we're doing to help folks with this program is we're partnering with our Ontario Works people through the homelessness prevention program. So folks that are having a difficult time getting some of the paperwork done, we're going to help them with that.
Yes, supplementary, Warden Robinson.
Thank you. And just to make sure that I'm clear, so they must be eligible to be on the wait list, but they do not in fact have to be on the wait list. Is that correct?
That is exact wording that we have in our guidelines. They must be eligible to be on the wait list.
Thank you very much, Carol. Any other questions on item 3? And item 4 is the resolution, which we've already dealt with. So can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the director's report as a whole? Moved by Councillor Regier, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. Any comments or questions on the report as a whole? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. So under.
Sorry, you need to get the general manager's monthly report.
Oh, yes. I've just been reminded that I also need to get a mover and a seconder for the general manager's monthly report. Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Grills. Any comments or questions on the general manager's report as a whole? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And under new business, I just wanted to bring to committee's attention that I did have a call from Councillor Jacquinot, and he would like to have a delegation in November with the grind coming forward. So I'm just working through some of the details on that with Laura Lepine and Paul. So there'll be, it could be an item on our next meeting agenda, and that will be included when you get that agenda for next month. Item number 10, well, item number 9 is closed meeting, which we have none at this time. Item 10 is the date of the next meeting, and you'll note that it's on Monday, November 9th. And that's because November 11th falls on our regular committee day, which is Remembrance Day. So as a result of Remembrance Day being on the Wednesday, our meeting has been moved to Monday, November 9th at 1 p.m. So item number 10 is adjournment. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Grills. All in favor? So we are adjourned. Thank you very much. And then we will move into our Social Services Committee meeting. So I'd like to call the Social Services Committee meeting to order. As roll call, I'm assuming it's been taken. Wendy, are we good?
Yes, we are good.
Thank you very much. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then can I get an adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on September 9th, 2020? I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Aguirre. Any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We have no delegations at this time. So we will move to the Social Services Department report. And Andrea, can you, oh, sorry, we have to start with Laura first.
Good afternoon, members of the Social Services Committee. My report begins on page 2. Item number 1 is an update on the Supportive Housing Engagement and Social Services Relief Fund. It is an appendix and it's a slide deck that has been provided for your information. What's contained in this document is a lot of information about community and social housing, supportive housing, funding, and the variety of different programs that exist in Ontario. Back in 2019, the Ontario budget was committed to reviewing the Ontario's supportive housing programs, both to identify opportunities to streamline and improve coordination and to make sure people are getting the services they need. It is a very complex system. Housing in Ontario consists of over 20 different programs across different ministries, including the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Ministry of Health, and Children and Community and Social Services. So what's been identified is that there may be some lack of coordination, some administrative inefficiencies, some difficulty navigating the system, and people not often receiving the most appropriate service based on their needs. So the ministry has identified and initiated some engagement activities. They started to do this in the spring of 2020, but it had to be paused due to the COVID-19. So using a virtual kind of engagement beginning really right now and into October, and November, the ministry is looking at improving supportive housing in some key areas. So supply, access, efficiencies, complex needs, and program models. They also want feedback on the COVID-19 situation in supportive housing and opportunities to build more resiliencies in the system. And because this year we had the Social Services Relief Fund, which flowed through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, they have included that in their consultation as well. So this consultation is beginning. I believe my session, or what I'm being scheduled for a session on October 21st. There's online surveys and then a virtual session where they want to really get a sense as to the programs that we have here in the County of Renfrew and looking across the province and gaining some feedback on supportive housing and the Social Services Relief Fund. More information is contained in the slide deck, which is identified as appendix number 1. Item number 2 is the 2021 Ontario Works funding allocation. And this is correspondence that we received from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services regarding the 2021 Ontario Works Program Delivery Funding Allocation. It's going to be $2,406,500. This is an important piece of information for us because if you recall, we received our 2020 allocation announcement in July of this year. So we are now receiving information in a very timely manner for the next year. So this is letting us know what our allocation is going to be for 2021. It is based on the same amount as the 2018 actuals. It is the same amount that we received in 2020. However, in 2019 and 2020, we received additional funding under a business case, a one-time funding to assist with our human services integration plans that we had both at Renfrew County Place and here at the County Admin Building. The other thing that the letter identifies is that the outcome measures or targets that we are held to year after year to make sure that we meet our outcome targets, they're giving us consideration given COVID-19, and that the targets are not going to be in any way reflective of the work that we're doing given our current situation. I would like to mention, while I have your attention, is that we meet outcome targets every year. We have to meet them. We develop a 2-year business cycle that we submit to the ministry, and we project what we feel, given our local labor market, given our employment situation, training. We sift through lots and lots of data to come up with what we feel is going to be a reasonable target to improve in terms of training, education, employment, even helping people get jobs, people who have employment get more hours, etc. And these targets are reviewed by the ministry. You may recall last year the targets were non-negotiable, and that was one of the things that the ministry had assigned targets to us. And I'm very pleased to say that year over year, the County of Renfrew Ontario Works program has met and exceeded all targets. We have not had a year where we've not met our targets. And I'm very proud of our Ontario Works staff for working very hard. And I can tell you that even during COVID-19 and the massive changes in employment, our staff are very dedicated to continuing to focus on employment when and where they can, and helping people get access to training and different opportunities so that they can get employment eventually. Item number 3 is improving supportive housing in Ontario. And this is a correspondence from the Deputy Minister from Housing through the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding a survey that is actually open right now. And the information is contained in the letter there. Item number 4 is a letter that we received from Peter Katapis, the Director of Community Housing Branch from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, regarding the 2019 Service Level Standards Action Plan. And I want to speak to you about this a little bit, just to bring a little bit of history into it. Back in June of 2019, we received a letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and it was a letter that was called Service Level Standard Obligations for Service Managers. And this was a letter that went to all but 8 service managers in Ontario, identifying that as a result of the value for money audit that took place in 2017 on social and affordable housing, there was some identification of service level standards not being met. And the ministry at that point in time asked for a plan. How are you going to improve your service level standards? So back in 2011, under the Housing Services Act, the County of Renfrew service level standard was prescribed to be 1,275. The ministry uses what's called the Service Manager Annual Information Return, or SMARE, to determine how we're meeting our service level standards. So back in 2018, our service level standard was at 1155. Setting us a difference of 120. So we definitely knew and we recognized at that time that part of the reason why we didn't reach the service level standard of 1275 had to do with items like rent geared to income, people who are living in rent geared to income who are at maximum rent. They don't count towards our service level standard. So if we have people who are not people who are in at maximum rent, they are not, even though they're in a rent geared to income housing unit, they do not count towards our service level standard. We also had other items such as, information on the SMARE, and the SMARE is also reliant on information from our other housing providers. So it could very well be that, we may have some information that might have been missing. The other thing is that we have nonprofit housing providers that when they have a vacant unit, we want to ensure that they choose people off the housing wait list. And sometimes what happens is they may offer the unit to a low income person. And if that happens, that does not count towards our service level standards. So we identified through working with the ministry and having a better understanding of what meets the service level standard and what doesn't meet the service level standard, what we could do about it. So we did put forward a suggestion to the ministry that, we're going to work with our rent geared to income tenants who are at market rent to help them, move forward in their plan for housing, access the home ownership program, work with our staff who work on the SMARE, work with our nonprofit housing providers, to achieve our numbers. And the ministry has responded with the letter that you see in front of you. Now, I do want to point out that in the letter, they make reference to a portable housing benefit that they identified that we didn't speak to that. But I do want to point out that the portable housing benefit that they're referring to is not the Canada-Ontario housing benefit that Carol spoke about in the Renfrew County Housing Board meeting. The portable housing benefit that the ministry is referring to is a municipal portable housing benefit. And at this point in time, we do not offer that. So I understand that the ministry would like to see us as a municipality offer that benefit, and we will look at that further. But I just wanted to point out that benefit that they're referring to is a municipally paid for benefit that that we are not currently delivering at this point in time. And then moving on to item number 5, resolution. Chair, are you okay if I go ahead and read the recommendation? Okay, item number 5, the 2020 contract QP Local 4425. The recommendation reads that the Social Services Committee recommend the County Council approve a 1-year from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 collective agreement between QP Local 4425 and Renfrew County Housing Corporation, which was ratified by the QP membership on September 29th, 2020. The background is contained in here, but to give you some more information, the negotiations began in July of this year. The agreement that was last negotiated and was a 3-year agreement that ended in December of 2019. Representatives from Renfrew County Housing and representatives of QP came together using Zoom to do contract negotiations. It was a half-day event that took place on September 22nd. The membership ratified on September 29th. This particular agreement looks at a 1.5% pay increase for 2020, adjustments to work and work boot and uniform allowances, some language changes around parental and pregnancy leave articles, and some other wording changes. This was a very amicable negotiations. I'm very pleased to let you know that it went very well. And that concludes my report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. So seeing that Laura's read the resolution, then I will ask for a mover and seconder to accept the resolution as presented, moved by Councillor Reinwald, seconded by Councillor Love. Any comments or questions in regards to the resolution on the QP Local 4425 contract agreement? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. So moving back to the beginning of Laura's report, and information item 1 is the update on supportive housing engagement and the Social Services Relief Fund. Any comments or questions? Item number 2 is the 2021 Ontario Works funding allocation. Good news that we've already received that information for next year. Item number 3 is the improving supportive housing in Ontario. Item number 4 is the 2019 Service Level Standards Action Plan. Yes, Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. And through you to Laura, thank you very much for that explanation. When I read the letter, I was a little bit concerned but I was suspicious about the portable housing benefit. I was pretty sure that was the one that we were supposed to pony up for, which certainly explains why the ministry is really interested in us using that as part of our housing strategy. So thank you for the clarification.
Through you, Chair, to Warden Robinson, I'm more than happy to answer questions on this one. It has been an interesting journey because they do want us to use this benefit, which, as you have noted, we don't have currently. And we have been working very hard with our tenants as it stands today. So I'm really interested to see what our SMARE tells us this year. I'm confident that our numbers have improved quite a bit. Thank you.
Any other questions on item 4? I guess the one comment I have, Laura, is I don't understand sometimes how you can keep track of all these different programs and funding streams and who, when, and where. Everything has to fall into place in order to access some of this. So certainly appreciate the job that you and your staff do.
Thank you.
So moving on then, we will have the Ontario Works Division report, and Andrea, please go ahead with that.
Good afternoon, members of committee. The Ontario Works report starts on page 22 of your electronic report. Through you, Chair Bros, to committee. Item number 1 is the Ontario Works caseload statistics. So you'll note that we continue to be in a bit of a downward trend as far as our ongoing caseload numbers. That is a trend that is similar to many municipalities across Ontario at this time. The ministry is expecting to have a bit of a resurgence in numbers when the federal financial benefits do end. The federal benefits continue to be a bit of a shifting landscape, so it's difficult to predict when they are going to conclude and when we may see a return with some of our volume, but I'll continue to keep a close eye on that and keep you informed regarding those trends. Item number 2 is our homelessness prevention program, which we deliver in partnership with Renfrew County Housing Corporation. This is a very busy program at the moment, as Carol alluded to in her report. We are seeing lots of applications for rental assistance, rental arrears and hydro arrears. And you'll note that we were able to assist 89 individuals and families in the month of August. And that's the highest number of applications staff have ever processed in a single month. So a very busy program for staff, and it continues to get bigger. We're seeing those numbers continuing to increase. So this is an area of high demand right now. Item number 3 is the Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Day. So the International FASD Awareness Day was on September 9th, and Family and Children's Services developed an initiative where they painted the FASD symbol, which is red running shoes, on rocks, and they delivered those rocks to strategic locations around the community to raise awareness for this disorder. And the rocks had information about the disorder and where to find resources printed on the back. So attached as Appendix 1, you'll see a picture of our staff at Renfrew County Place participating in this important initiative. Moving on to page 23. Item number 4 is the Social Assistance Recovery and Renewal Update. So I've attached several items from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services providing detailed information for you about the social assistance reform plans and modernization initiatives that are upcoming and underway. So a key part of this transformation is the centralized intake pilot project that we were very pleased to be selected to be one of a few municipalities to participate in this pilot. And Director Lepine has brought you detailed information about this, but just by way of a bit of an update. So plans and meetings are underway for this pilot. Our management staff and some of our frontline intake staff have been participating in planning meetings with the ministry to work on some of the finer details about how this pilot will run. Looking at helping to build user guides and looking at how the digital centralized application will interface with our computer system, which is SAMS. And we're really pleased to be a part of providing some feedback and information to help shape how this is going to look And we expect to continue to be busy with some of these meetings and plannings after the launch, which is set to occur at the end of this month. So hoping that by the time this is ready for rollout across Ontario, that there's a very good product as a really streamlined and simple and user-friendly way for vulnerable residents to access social assistance supports. Item number 5 is a resolution. Chair Brose, may I read the recommendation?
Yes, please go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that the Social Services Committee approves the business case for a 5-month contract Ontario Works supervisor position in Group 8, 74,172 to 87,260 of Employment Bylaw Number 1, non-union staff salary grid. So I'll provide you with a little bit of information regarding what we're hoping to do in this area. We currently have 2 Ontario Works supervisors, and we would like to assign one of our supervisors to the Human Services Integration Lead role and create an opportunity for her to focus on our Human Services Integration project on a full-time basis over the next 5-month period. So as committee is aware, we embarked on the planning for Human Services Integration back in 2019, and we successfully brought our 3 offices, Renfrew County Housing, Ontario Works, and Childcare Services, together in our Renfrew location in December of 2019. And we were able then to offer a 1-counter service for residents to come in and be able to access supports from all 3 services in one location. We have received lots of positive feedback from clients and service agencies about this, and we are moving forward with phase 2, which is the movement of our Pembroke offices into the one location at the County Administration Building, hopefully about March of 2021 when renovations are complete at the county building. So the Human Services Integration role has a number of elements to it. It's not just, orchestrating the move of 3 offices that are currently located at different locations around Pembroke, but coordinating the moves, coordinating the technology, the staffing to get into the one location. But in addition, it's also taking a critical look at all of our processes across those 3 service areas and looking at how we can align our processes, how we can streamline them, how we can ensure that when we're collecting information, we're not asking for it 3 times, and we can collect information in a streamlined manner and provide services to residents in a very client-focused way. So we anticipate, as I say, the next 5-month period to be a really busy time. And of course, our Human Services Integration phase 2 for the Pembroke end is coinciding and a part of the county's overall service delivery improvement project. So we are hoping that our Human Services Integration Lead can also work closely with Mr. Kelly and his project team with the Service Delivery Improvement Project. So at this time, the business case that is before you for your consideration is to request to be able to backfill the supervisor position in order to continue to have 2 supervisors for Ontario Works looking after staffing and operations of the Ontario Works staff and programs. It is a very busy time right now within Ontario Works service delivery. Some of it we've been talking about throughout this report. So certainly the number of changes that we're going through right now with modernization, the centralized intake pilot that we're participating in and very pleased to be participating in, is a significant time commitment for our management staff at this time. They're currently meeting with the ministry 2 full afternoons a week to provide information and help with planning. So it's a busy time. We're also, as I'm sure is very clear and experienced by all of you, just throughout the pandemic, it has been very, very busy for our management staff. Changes coming at us every day and working to roll those changes out to staff and review and realign our processes to move to electronic means and make sure that we can keep our staff and our residents as safe as possible without any disruptions to the service provision. So as I say, the case that the business case before you is, seeking your support in being able to have an additional Ontario Works supervisor for the 5-month period of November 2020 to March 2021. And as noted in the business case, in terms of the financial considerations, we have been able to have some savings in our salary lines due to some vacant positions that were not backfilled during COVID. So we are able to meet the financial requirements for this within our existing budget. So I will pause there, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that committee may have about this or provide any additional information.
Any questions or comments from committee? Yes, Councillor Reinwald.
Thank you very much, Chair Rose. To Andrea, I think you sold the farm. No, very, very well done. Very well received. Very detailed, and very pleased with what I'm hearing today. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Brose, to Councillor Reinwald, just wanted to thank you for that support and those comments.
Warden Robinson, you had a question?
I mainly just a comment. Certainly the pilot project that we're going to be involved in, I think, is very important. I'm very pleased that we were chosen to do that. But I'm also very pleased that that staff, Andrea, identifies when there's issues, staffing issues, and pressures, because that's what we do not want to see happen is that for the expectation of additional work on our staff and not realize that there's an impact there. So certainly in support of your request.
Yes, supplementary, Councillor Reinwald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Andrea. I'm very, very pleased to see also that you're doing some job shadowing that's going to be taking place before there's a movement in that position. So I'm very, very pleased to see that. A lot of times things happen very quickly, and you don't make the time to do that, and it's so important for that to be done. I also want to congratulate you on you and your team. It truly shows that the County Renfrew Social Services Department is well recognized at the province level. So I certainly tip my hat off to you and everyone on the Social Services Department. Job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reinwald, and I'd like to follow that up as well and congratulate Andrea and her team, as well as certainly taking note of the fact that in spite of the move and the consolidation to one counter in Renfrew County Place, we also have the challenge of COVID, which has been difficult for you and your staff, and working from home and delivering services sometimes after hours, etc. So I think this position is certainly warranted and certainly worth supporting in order to make sure you get to still deliver the same level of service to the clients as well as facilitate the move. Any other comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, maybe I'll get you to go ahead to bylaws, Andrea, and then we can go back and go through the report.
Okay, thank you, Chair Rose. I'd be pleased to. So may I go ahead and read the recommendation for bylaw?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the Social Services Committee recommends that County Council approve the addition of policy OW1, internal control measures and process for Ontario Works payments, and policy OW2, funerals. So I'll provide just a bit of background here with respect to these two policies that are in front of you. What I'm seeking to do here is just to formalize some of our business processes around these two areas. So first of all, with respect to the first policy, the internal control measures and process for Ontario Works payments, this is a very comprehensive policy that outlines a number of the steps involved with printing Ontario Works payments, as well as the both staff and system controls that are in place to ensure reviews and accountability and oversight on Ontario Works payments before they go out. So as payments increase in value, there's additional steps and oversight in place for those. And when you get to a payment of $5,000 or more, that would be an Ontario Works supervisor that would need to go into our computer system, which is SAMS, and release that payment to a payment queue before it would print. And when it would print, it would then print without a digital signature and would actually go up to our Director of Finance for his review and signature on it. So this policy has been reviewed by the Finance Department, and they have had it reviewed by the auditor. And as I say, we're seeking to just formalize this business process in the form of a policy. The second one, OW2, funerals. This is a discretionary benefit under Ontario Works, and it's one of few areas where we have any discretion within our processing and payment level around this benefit. So I'm seeking here to provide a very transparent policy so that low-income individuals can identify how they would seek assistance to apply for funeral expenses and how those payments or how those benefits eligibility would be determined and what the payment level would be within the county of Renfrew. So our payment level has been set at $4,000. The ministry sets the minimum requirement at $2,250, and a survey of offices across Ontario show that we're well within the range of what is reasonable for this benefit. Other offices across Ontario pay anywhere from the $2,250 to about $5,700. So I think we're well in a reasonable period for that we have set. So I'll pause there, and if there's any questions or more detail requested about these policies, I'm happy to answer them. And that does bring me to the end as well of my report for this month.
So maybe I'll ask for a mover and a seconder on the bylaw, and then we can entertain questions. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Grills, seconded by Councillor Love. Any questions or comments on the bylaw? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. And then going back to the staffing recommendation, can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the staffing recommendation? Moved by Councillor Reinwald, seconded by Councillor Aguirre. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried as well. So going back to the beginning of the Ontario Works report, information item 1 is the Ontario Works caseload stats. Comments or questions? Seeing none, item 2 is the homeless prevention program. Certainly appears to be a growing need for that program, and once again, speaks to the extra workload for your staff in Ontario Works, Andrea. And thank you for staying on top of that. Item 3 is the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder awareness. Item 4 is the social assistance recovery and renewal update. And I guess the one question I had, so as part of this pilot, do you run parallel the new program pilot with the current system to see if there's any glitches?
Thank you for the question, Chair Bros. Yes, we do. So it's going to be an interesting pilot. The pilot sites that are participating will have applications that are going through the new social assistance digital application that has been created. So they will have access when residents in the County of Renfrew apply, they will have access to the new digital application that they're testing. And when that's received by the central team, it will be run through a risk-based framework where they match up a number of third-party and federal and provincial information sources to determine the risk to granting that file. And the low and medium risk will be granted in an automated fashion before the file is connected with the local office for staff to start working with the individual on life stabilization and other supports. And the high risk cases will come back to the local office to have an eligibility determination made in accordance with our current processes. So they have made a number of technical changes so that the applications come into SAMS, and some of the processes that they are working out with our local management team and the other offices across the provinces is around some of the handoffs for the high risk files and how they can ensure that those files are connected with the local offices and information is shared in a very timely manner that is very seamless for the applicants.
Thank you very much. And I guess we keep our fingers crossed that the launch of this new program won't have the same challenges that the original launch of SAMS presented to your staff. So.
Yes, I think Chair Brose, the ministry, one of the reasons that they've moved to the pilots and testing some of their new products in a very small way is to avoid, some of the challenges that they went through with SAM. So some of the testing will be local offices identifying where there are issues, and those issues will then be fixed and resolved before the province-wide launch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments on item 4? So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the Ontario Works Division report as a whole. Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Grills. All in favor? That's approved. Thank you very much. Which brings us to our Child Care and Early Years Division report. And Judy, please go ahead.
Chair, hello, members of committee. My report begins on page 54 of the electronic copy. I need these glasses today to see what I'm doing. The first item is our licensed childcare statistical report, and it is attached for you to preview. You will note that we are operating at a higher level of capacity than we were in August. And if you scroll down on that section to page 80, in the bottom right, you'll see that we have 75% of our centers are open, and we have 61% of our children back in care. Last month, we were operating about 60% of centers opened and serving between 30 and 40% of children. So we are growing a little bit, which is really quite nice to see. Item number 2 is the public reporting of confirmed cases of COVID. And if you go to that attachment, you will find a link that allows you to preview any confirmed cases of COVID in schools or in licensed childcare centers. And they're listed by the school. Item number 3, I chose to add this item, committee, because September was our full reopening month since the closure in March. And we were really seeing with our licensed childcare providers a lot of the pressures really coming to life. And so we wanted to recognize the work that they've done and that they're doing. And so we posted this on both the County of Renfrew Facebook page and on the childcare Facebook page. And I also wanted you as a committee to be able to see what it looks like in our licensed childcare centers now. And so I've attached some pictures. You will see in the pictures the station where children and families were required to check in originally and go through a series of tests. Now this screening is completed for the children at home, and the parents are to report the outcome to the center. Item number 4 is updated on the screening guidance, which is what I just spoke to in terms of when the screening needs to take place and how the screening is done and the tool that you can use online. Item number 5 is just an extension to the amount that we received for the childcare federal Safe Start refund, restart funding, excuse me. We can now choose to spend this by December 31st, which was in the original agreement, or they've extended it until March 31st. So I've provided that information for you, committee, and as well as the fact that we have, using our general operating formula, we've provided the operators with an immediate allocation of just over 500,000. The operators were starting to advise me that they were struggling to pay bills under the restart program. So we chose to get some money out to them sooner than later. Item number 6 is report on the review of the Child Care and Early Years Act. There's some very lengthy reports attached here for you, committee. I'm just going to summarize it. What the ministry did was they sought input from families and professionals and community members. They came out with the 6 bullet points of what they'd like to focus on, and that they're going to put those in the regulatory amendments that are proposed and make some changes to the Child Care and Early Years Act. So that will be happening over the next little while for us. Item number 7 is the licensed childcare data profiles, and we've attached for you the County of Renfrew's growth, and you will see that in the last 10 years, the growth in Renfrew County and licensed childcare has been phenomenal, and I thought you may be interested in that as a committee. And that concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Judy. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the licensed child care statistical report. The one thing that I did find interesting in this report was that even though the child care centers are operating at less than capacity, the staffing levels are, I think, either the same or a little greater than they were pre-COVID. And I guess it just is an indication that it's much more difficult now for the childcare operators to have that safer environment, and does require more staff in order to manage those childcare numbers. Item number 2 is the public reporting of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the licensed childcare centers. Judy, just a question. Oh, sorry, Warden Robinson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for Judy. I wasn't sure where to ask it, so I'll ask it here. Is there a difference in the criteria for a child attending a licensed child care center or attending school? Because there seems to be a difference in, so if a child has a cough or a sniffle in the school system, how I understand it is the child stays home for a couple of days, and if the symptoms resolve themselves, then the child can go back into the school system. With childcare, though, I'm aware of a couple of parents who have had a child who has had a cough, and they must receive a negative COVID test before they can return. So I'm just wondering why the discrepancy.
Through you, Chair, a very good question. So basically, what the health unit and or the ministry, they're the minimal minimal requirements. Just to go back, actually, sorry, excuse me, to your first question, the ministry is working very hard to align what's expected in childcare and what's expected in schools, and that's why you're seeing a number of these new guidelines coming out. But the childcare operators, because they're independent entities, have the right to ask above and beyond what the minimal standard is, or the required standard that the health unit or the ministry may require. So in some cases, you might find that the child can go back after, sorry, excuse me, I just have to adjust my screen. Okay, that the child can go back after so many days. But the child care center may say, no, we prefer that the child stay home and receive a COVID test. So there is that situation where the guidelines and what the operator is saying don't match up. But you will find in those situations, the operators being a little bit more stringent than the guidelines.
Thank you, Chair. So, you know, and I don't know whether or not we have a role to play in this or not, in that we all know that the time of return for a test result is, you know, people say 4 to 8 days. I would say 4 to 8 days is optimistic. I'm aware of people waiting much more than 14 days. Obviously, after 14 days, however, if the child's fine, then the likelihood of them being positive for COVID are pretty slim. But again, without that negative test result, that child could be sitting at home for a month waiting for that test result. So I'm not sure if there's a role for us to play in that or not, but just a comment, observation, I suppose.
Thank you, Warden. And maybe this is also the time I would like to ask the question, Judy. I know we talked a little bit about the challenge that some of the child care centers are having with the just recruiting and getting enough employees to effectively operate some of their programs. And that in some cases where they don't have the staff, they actually have to cut their programming. So is that presenting a challenge as far as parents getting the childcare spaces, or are you still managing to accommodate?
Well, thank you, Chair, for that question. We are still managing to accommodate those families that are wanting childcare at this time. What we're finding is you are correct, Chair, in that to serve the system that we have now, childcare centers are reporting a need of 30 more staff as what we had when we were open at full capacity. The problem is that if there's a staff that's ill, or a portion of the program has to be shut down, including staff, there aren't, in some cases, there aren't staff to be found. And we have had one issue where a preschool program in the county was required to close until the children were well and able to return, and the staff, because they didn't have the staff to come in and support the children in the program. So we are keeping an eye on that.
And that becomes sometimes, I guess, a challenge on two fronts for parents. One being waiting for a test result for their child, and the other being, well, even if I get a good test result, maybe the child care center program isn't available anymore. So yeah, uncharted waters for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, Councillor Grills.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Judy, what's the situation with in the childcare centers with PPE? The reason I ask is my daughter-in-law is an early childhood educator in the district of Thunder Bay, and they're doing okay so far, but they're not unlike where we are here in the county of Renfrew with a smaller population. How is it with us?
Through you, Chair. Thank you for that question. That's also a very good question. Not great news for you on that front. We are low in PPE. It's very specialized PPE. We can't, the providers can't go and purchase a mask that someone has made. We've received instructions from the province that if we can't ascertain some PPE, unfortunately, those programs will have to close. Most of our programs have enough PPE to do us for the next week or so, but we're doing some very strong and heavy reach outs to the province regarding this. That started mid last week. And we are hopeful that, although we're a little scared right now, that there will be some PPE that will arrive in Renfrew County shortly. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Judy. And is that, I would assume that's a challenge province-wide then, not just for Renfrew County.
Yes, Chair.
Any other questions on item 3? Item 4 is the updated screening guidance. Item 5 is the child care and early on agreement extension. Some good news there. Item number 6 is the report on the review of the Child Care and Early Years Act 2014, the consultation on proposed regulatory amendments, and the Early Years in Child Care Annual Report 2020. Comments or questions? Seeing none, item 7 is the 2020 licensed child care data profiles. I guess I would just like to say once again that thank you so much, Judy, to your staff and also to our childcare operators. I think the one thing that COVID has certainly demonstrated is that we have to operate and collaborate much more as a team, because sometimes our childcare providers are on the lower end of the wage scale, but they provide that essential service to our frontline workers, like our paramedics, our nurses, our those providers of services that are critically important. But it also puts the childcare providers at greater risk, because these people are also exposed to greater risk. So it certainly is a tricky situation to maneuver through. So once again, your efforts are greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
So I will ask then for a motion to adopt the report as a whole. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Reinwald, seconded by Councillor Aguirre. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Any items of new business? And we have no closed at the time of this meeting. So the date of our next meeting, once again, is Monday, November 9th at 1 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder for adjournment? Moved by Councillor Grill, seconded by Councillor Love. All in favor? Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon on a beautiful sunshiny day.